And it's your guy Wardy, and we're back at it with the latest Big Mets update segment as we have all the little details to get into in this heated NLCS matchup, a best-of-7 matchup beginning in LA tomorrow, 8 p.m. Eastern. Your guy Wardy will have you covered with in-game and post-game coverage live here on the channel all throughout the NLCS matchups, games 1, 2, 3, 4, you name it. We got you covered here, and we have a lot of key updates to get into that has come out earlier today from Carlos Mendoza, from Dave Roberts. Who are we going to be seeing matching up for games 1 and 2 at least on the rotation front? Was the latest with Jeff McNeil and his status for the Mets, as he's likely going to be returning with them starting tomorrow, as well as what are the Dodgers having when it comes to their bullpen? Are they losing any arms due to injury? Well, they are in fact losing arms, and we're going to get into that in a bit because that is significant for this Mets team in this matchup. And ultimately here, as you guys see on the graphic right away, we're going to start off today's show with an update that's completely separate from the NLCS entirely, but it's definitely big news in Mets land that I'm excited to start today's conversation with. So, everybody, in our latest segment presented by BetUS, America's #1 sportsbook that has you covered with all your sports betting needs. Make sure to check them out today by using Wardy's promo code YouTube150. That way you too get a 150% bonus off your first deposit, $125 with your next two for a total of $3 up to $2,000 for all your sports betting needs. As you guys are expecting, as I expect from each and every one of you, if you're going to buy a bet, make sure you do what our amazing friends as BetUS, as we're going to talk about them a little bit later in the show and look at the live odds for the Mets and their heated matchup beginning tomorrow against the Dodgers. But how you doing, everybody? Let's do a roll call right here, right now, before we deep dive all the little details that you guys are going to want to know about this matchup. Explosive Anthony, Frank, Malone being the schmuck per usual. How you doing? Tony, PB, Explosive, Camp Great Member, Emilio, Sean with the $2 already. Thank you so much for that, Sean. Sean says, I've been listening to My Girl since the series win, as you should. There's nothing wrong with that whatsoever, Sean. Thank you for the donation. Appreciate you sharing that because you're like every other Mets fan right now. Sanders, how you doing? He says this series can be compared to the David versus Goliath duel. The Mets will slay the LA Dodgers. Look, the Mets are trying to slay the Dragon the same way Jake Cronenworth and those Padres did it 2 years ago. Fell short of it this year after being up in the series 2-1. So Padres fans are very much in unison with Mets fans right now. Get the job done. It's as simple as this. Hashtag beat LA. And speaking of LA, that is the bulk of the discussion here, folks, as we're going to deep dive all the latest details on this NLCS matchup, a further preview, if you will, to get you set and primed up for tomorrow's big game that begins right around 8, as I mentioned, everybody. I appreciate everyone watching live on a replay. As you guys see in the live show, we have a poll going, and my question to each and every one of you is simply this. Put your biased point of view out of here. Give me your unbiased point of view. Who is going to win this series and how? I have 4 options. Option A is Mets win this series in 7 games. Option B is Mets win this game in less than 7 games. Series rather. Option C, Dodgers win the series in 7 games. And option D, the Dodgers win the series in less than 7 games. Pick those 1 through 4, however you like, everybody. Let's get this thing rolling. AJ's feeling very confident about his Mets, saying Mets in 4. Frank's loving the cap. I appreciate that. Thank you. We got our guy Great Ghost, who's a great member here. We got our guy Dave in here, great member. How you doing, brother? Hope everything's great on your front. We got Paris in here, great member, saying MLB will be rooting for a Yankee-Dodger World Series. I mean, obviously, they're going to be looking for the biggest markets to be there, which is all the more reason as to why the Mets need to make sure that doesn't happen. Mets in 5, says Ethan. How you doing, RZ? Happy to have you in here as always. Going down the list here, Peter, Frank, JTB, thank you guys for taking the time. We appreciate you guys greatly. So, let's start off our conversation with a big one, because this was news that no one expected to hear today, all the way back at 9:28 a.m. Eastern today, and it is as follows from Andy Koska. And I'll say the first time I saw that name Koska, I just thought of Michael Koska right away, former New York Rangers defenseman who was Swiss cheese, who's far from good. If you guys remember, to my Ranger fans out there, probably around the 2017 area, if I had to guess, 2016, 2017 range. Either way, I'm sure there's no relation here. And this guy, Andy Koska, who does a fantastic job with his reporting, tweeted the following this morning. Ken, I'm going to butcher the last name, so bear with me, folks. If you guys can actually break it down for me, if you know this last name fluently the way that I don't, let me know. But I'm going to go with Ken. Let's see. I don't even know how to pronounce the last name here. Gutray? Gute? I'm going to butcher it. Either way, we're going to go with our buddy Ken here. Baltimore Orioles scout who helped sign Jackson Holliday, Heston Kjerstad, and Creed Williams, just to name a few, has officially departed with the Baltimore Orioles to be, in fact, a New York Metropolitan. He is entering David Stearns' staff for the remainder of the year heading into 2025, and this is absolutely massive. Let's not forget the great hires that David Stearns did this past offseason by hiring Chris Gross, who would be basically overseeing VP of Amateur Scouting. Then you got there Andy Green from the Chicago Cubs, and he's overseeing player development. Now you bring in this fantastic scout in Ken, who obviously has a great rapport during his number of years with the Baltimore Orioles, really doing fantastic every single year with their drafting, while the Orioles, I thought, were very foolish to trade away some of their key young assets that they had at the deadline this year for them to fall short and simply not hit a baseball there when they had hit postseason play, unfortunately. Regardless, this Orioles team has a lot of things to be excited about for their future. Ken was a part of that, and now he's entering the fold here with the Mets. Let's see. We're going to go with Guthrie. Okay, we're going to go with that. So Guthrie or Guthrie, either way, we're going to go with our guy Ken here. Yoshima with the $2 hollow. Thank you so much. Yoshima says, one game at a time, Dodgers beat up. We can do this. Absolutely. And look, this Dodgers team is vulnerable. Could they win this series? Absolutely. But is anything a slam dunk guarantee? Far from it. Dodgers fans already making their rounds on the content over the past days saying, oh, this is a cakewalk. We're so excited to play the Mets. I'm so glad that they feel that way because, oh my God, is it going to be sweet to see them crying their eyes out when the Mets take game 1 and or game 2, because I have all the utmost confidence in the world. The Mets at minimum split the start of this series. The first 2 games are in LA, especially as we take a look as what the Mets rotation is going to be. So without further ado, let's pivot and get into more of these discussions. However, before we get in the rotation, I do have one final update for you all on Mr. Jeff McNeil. So let's start the discussion here by getting into Jeff. Emerson, how you doing? Steve, Rebecca, great members. Happy to have you guys in here. And this is from Carlos Mendoza himself earlier today. Listen up, folks.
When the NLCS starts.
Yeah, he came out good after that game last night, played second base. If you guys probably saw it, the whole game, 5 at-bats, say he felt physically really good. He's scheduled to play right field today, and then we'll see where we at. But, again, trending in the right direction, feeling good physically, 5 at-bats, 9 innings on the field. Like I say, wait till he gets through today's game, and then we'll go from there.
So Jeff, who started in right field in the Arizona Fall League today after commanding second base and playing all 9 innings without a problem, even had himself at least 1 hit, is locked and loaded and ready to return to this Mets team. Now, we will officially find out tomorrow what the move will be for the Mets as a corresponding move with Jeff McNeil being activated, but everything is currently pointing towards the Mets to potentially go with 1 bullpen arm short for this 7-game set, knowing that even though that, yes, they have a certain amount of guys available in the NLCS roster, it doesn't mean they're going to use them, even in best of 7 series. And the reason why I say that is, look at what the Mets did back in the NLDS. I understand it's a best of 5, circumstances are a little bit different. Doesn't change the fact, however, though, that the Mets will have some relievers that might be actively on the roster, but guys that they're going to be far from interested in trying to play with at any point in time. I think we're going to see that full-fledged yet again here, knowing the importance of a pinch runner, a late-game replacement. That is something and Mr. Carlos Mendoza likes to prioritize with one Luis Angel Acuna. Acuna, I do not foresee to be going anywhere in the foreseeable future. As I say this, watch the Mets send him down as a corresponding move. I don't think it's going to happen. I really think Acuna is going to be staying on this roster. I do believe one of Adam Ottavino or Danny Young will be parted with as a corresponding move to activate Jeff McNeil. Jeff getting reps in the outfield, as we alluded to yesterday. This makes all the sense in the world. He will be getting playing time for the Mets at both second base and the outfield. And as soon as this NLCS, yes, you heard that correctly, based on matchups, based on freshness of players, and based on riding who's hot, if Jeff goes out right away and makes a difference, the Mets will ride that hot hand as long as they possibly can. Jose Iglesias deserves to be here. He deserves to be our starting second baseman, yes, but we also deserve to make sure that we have the best matchup. And if Jose does look overpowered, say against a Flaherty, or say against a Buehler, or say against, we'll go down the line and we'll figure it out as things go here with this rotation for the Dodgers and Yamamoto by towards the end of the week there for games, say 3 or 4 there at Citi Field. Either way, should those things happen, that's where it even makes more sense to warrant Jeff McNeil coming off the bench, potentially a little bit early, so that way you have favorable matchups, or you bring him a late game as a replacement, because say you face there a favorable matchup for Jose Iglesias for the first 5-6 innings, now you're attacking the bullpen, and that's where Jeff McNeil could really go to town based on either lefty-lefty matchups where he's thrived plenty throughout his career, similar to Brandon Nimmo, or if he wants to go righty-lefty matchups Carlos Mendoza deems as best. Either way, I'm excited to have Jeff back because you can never have enough good offensive options, and Jeff is certainly one of them. Now, I understand there were some Mets fans that have a pessimism to a degree with McNeil's return. They feel that maybe the vibes will change with Jeff coming back, which I wholeheartedly disagree with, only because Jeff was here when things were riding high in the second half, the same way that Jeff was here, even while he was a non-factor in the first half. He was still a part of things as they started to turn things on there in the month of June, and definitely, even though he didn't have the greatest impact, was a part of that run entirely, knows what it takes to win for this Mets team, has been here as a core veteran, and absolutely a guy that has versatility both in the infield and the outfield. As someone who spoke so down on Jeff McNeil the way that I did in the first half, I couldn't be speaking more up to him right now, with him being the best contact hitter for the Mets in the second half, leading the Mets in OPS as well with over 900. I mean, he was doing it all up until his injury with that hairline wrist fracture on an off-speed pitch thrown his way. Very unfortunate, but McNeil's healthy, he's back, he's locked and loaded, and he's ready to impact this Mets team starting an NLCS play. I know Emerson, my man Borna is going through it right now, unfortunately, for my man Hog. If you guys don't know, Borna is the best Padres YouTuber you'll ever meet. He does a lot of things similar to what we do here on the platform, can definitely be exaggerated, and the reactions at times as well, but one who's a diehard who lives and dies with his team as much as possible. And Borna, like every other Padres under the sun right now, is certainly rooting for the Mets to slay the dragon, which is the big bad LA Dodgers. Let's go up the list here. Braden, thank you so much for the $2 holla. I appreciate that. Would love to see you on BT and Sal on WFAN. We'll try to make that happen then. You know, shout out to my guy Sal. He's had me on WFAN in the past. I know everyone knows me over there. I know that Evan and Hoff know me there very well. Even though I've never personally interacted with Evan, they clearly know who I am because they've definitely taken influence from the things that I do with the things that they've done this year as well, which is understandable, perfectly fine. And I would actually love to collaborate with Evan specifically just because of how immersed he is in the Mets space in a way that Sal isn't. Sal is more immersed in the Mets space in a way that very few love him, at least on X, and a lot of people dislike him because of how he perpetuates himself as a talking head. That's the ultimate jinx more often than not, whereas Evan is a pure pessimist a lot of the times. However, he's finally changing the tide after realizing that this Mets team is very talented and they are a special club, and that is great. And speaking of what is great, that is certainly this Mets team and the run that they have been on. And as we transition into the latest with the Mets here, let's continue to do exactly that, because we do see here Carlos Mendoza is siding with Kodai Senga for Game 1 of the NLCS. Exactly what I called yesterday. Some people thought it would be something different. I don't know why. They are very stubborn on making sure that Kodai Senga does not defer from his routine. Senga, fellow countrymen there of Japan, like Shohei, like Yamamoto, these guys are regimented in very different ways than average Major League Baseball players. In the case of Kodai, for him to not only stay healthy, but to be locked in, it's important to make sure that you have him in the most comfortable situation imaginable, which is why he was always getting this Game 1 start. To anyone that thought Shaman I was going to get Game 1, anyone that thought that somehow, some way, a Severino or a Quintana was going to be, it was never going to be the case. This was always going to be the route. Nothing was deferring from this. But let's hear from the skipper himself what he has to say on the following. Let's hear it, folks.
You obviously had 3 pretty reasonable options. What made you land on Senga?
Yeah, from the beginning, we wanted to put our guys in what we felt was the best position to have success, right? Considering where they are physically, some of the innings, who needs the extra days, who do we want to keep on their normal routine. That was the case for Senga. We wanted to keep it as close as possible to his routine. And then with some of the other guys, like I said, because of where they at physically and who will benefit from extra days, so we decided to go with Senga and keep.
So, simply put, they're going with Kodai as a surprise to absolutely nobody. Now, the big question that a lot of people have regarding Kodai is, 1, how much length are you getting? And 2, what is the piggyback? Now, the automatic belief is the same exact thing that we just saw against the Phillies there in Game 1, where you had at least Kodai Senga for 2, if not 3, 4 innings. Then David Peterson comes in to piggyback for 2, 3, and you go from there. Peterson has been a fantastic Swiss Army knife weapon in this Mets bullpen as a dominant southpaw not named Danny Young, because unlike Danny Young, David Peterson is actually good in high-leverage situations, and he has proved that as both a starter and a reliever down the stretch for the Mets here. Now, it's interesting because already has not emphasized whether Pearson will be the piggyback option for Kodai should Kodai say go 3-4 innings for the Mets. Their game 1 tomorrow, in which we'll be doing in-game and post-game coverage. Everybody lock in. It's going to be an amazing series, a heated series. We are covering every step of the way here on the WardyNYM platform, as we always do. Thank you guys so much in advance for chiming into the content all week long here on the platform. But to reel back in, Kodai is one of those guys where if you got 3-4, David Pearson, I think, does make a lot of sense. But is there an avenue that the Mets may get interesting? Is there an avenue where the Mets may say, okay, based on matchups, we are going to throw Tyler McGill out there for 2 innings, and we're going to see what the hell happens? It is not out of the realm of possibility, even though I do not foresee it as a likelihood. I think those two things need to be distinct and separate from the two. I will be surprised if Tyler McGill is utilized as a piggyback option for Senga tomorrow. I will be surprised if Jose Butto is utilized, in a similar situation, even though Butto is no longer in the Mets' circle of trust, as we've all been saying. He has worked himself out of that rather quickly, as he has been far from a reliable option in high leverage play, which is not good for a Mets team that doesn't have many high leverage options to begin with in their pen. And the fact that Ryan Stanek is basically the guy we trust the most right now in this bullpen is a problem, not to denounce Stanek's brilliance, because that's been great, but to further amplify the greater issues the Mets have had with their lack of quality in said pen. So as I evaluate the current options right now, as we look in this Game 1 matchup between the Mets and between the Dodgers, I do foresee things to go very similar to how Game 1 went, assuming Kodai Senga doesn't get rocked and shelled and he's not out of there in the first inning. God forbid if, say, he can't handle Shohei, Mookie, Freddie at the top of the order there, then that's a situation where the Mets are really going to have to hanker down and see if David Pearson can pretty much give them a full start, and then that'll hurt their chances to be able to utilize David in multi-aim relief later on in the series, which is something that they certainly don't want to happen. So either way, best case scenario, I think what a lot of Mets fans are hoping for, what we expect, especially when you look at the top of the order, is that the Mets are going to go with Kodai Senga for 3-4 innings, David Pearson for 2-3 at least, and then they're going to go from there. Ryan, my man, how are you, brother? Happy to have you in here. Oliver Gutierrez, how are you? David, going up the list. Michael, how you doing? Rebecca, great member. Gorilla, great member. Emmett, thank you guys for taking the time. If you guys are chiming in live on a replay, make sure to smash a like and subscribe button for you guys if you enjoyed the latest Mets coverage. We greatly appreciate every single one of you. And I know this is news that you guys are going to appreciate, even though I will preface, I do not wish injury on anybody, but it is kind of bizarre in the timing of this. As we broke down our initial preview yesterday before finding out more on the rotation matchups, as I mentioned, Kodai Senga will be taking Game 1, towing the rubber for the Mets in LA. Who will be towing the rubber in LA? For the home crowd there, it will be the newly acquired LA Dodger, the former St. Louis Cardinal, most recently former Detroit Tiger, in a year that the Tigers are no longer a postseason play, but not for a lack of effort. A great run, an amazing run that they had. Lane Thomas just had his Lindor-esque Grand Salami heroics for Cleveland, which was fitting. They advanced to play the Yankees now, but let's reel back in. Jack Flaherty will be on the bump for the LA Dodgers there, and Jack, who did not look all that well in his first matchup against the Padres in playoffs, is looking to rebound nicely against a Mets team who's hungry to do more damage against their next opponent in their way of potentially, yes, World Series play. It's insane to say such a thing, but that's the conversation we're having now. But the Dodgers will be without one of their most key relievers, throwing from the southpaw position. That's none other than Alex Vesia. Vesia, who we talked about yesterday, along paired with guys in Trinan, also in Kopech. These are some of the most lethal options you have in this Dodgers bullpen. Vesia has been nasty for years. He's also a great story, too, if I'm not mistaken. I do believe that he's Mexican, and he grew up a Dodger fan in the area, kind of similar to, Julio Urias, but without all the controversy and being a terrible piece of shit human being. Vesia, sadly, though, is not going to be available, as he is dealing with a strained intercostal muscle that's likely going to have him off of the NLCS roster. This is great news for the Mets, as they're now going to be down one key reliever there in the Dodgers, but just because they're down does not mean that they're out. The Dodgers will be looking for the next man to step up, and one man who has stepped up, believe it or not, as a southpaw option in their bullpen, who was utilized multiple times and actually had scoreless outings. That has been the man who came back over from the KB over the past year or so, Anthony Banda. Remember Banda Panda? Remember the man who was the 1-2 punch with a fellow southpaw there, and Mr. Aaron Loop, the Bush Beer drinking mofo that he was? Yes, fast forward from 2021 to 2022. 2024. Banda has been on every team under the sun since then, but the Dodgers have fine-tuned his game quite a bit, similar to Sean Manaea, how, Dodgers fans might think they're getting Padres Sean Manaea when they're getting 2024 Sean Manaea. Is the same with us Mets fans have to understand that even though Anthony Banda used to be with us and wasn't all that great, doesn't change the fact that Banda has fine-tuned his game quite a bit. He has been a nice option for the Dodgers. They even utilized him in the third inning there, where they decimated the Padres at home there in Game 4, and a winner-go-home matchup basically, and they took that with ease there. This Padres team will be down, but they're not out, but I did have to inform you all there on the latest with Vesia, because that is a key piece of that bullpen, and without him now, it's going to be interesting to see how much more usage they have to go with Blake Treinen, who in my opinion is one of the most lethal and most nasty relievers in Major League Baseball. Treinen is simply unhittable when he is right. He has so much late movement on his pitches with some strong velocity as well, which does not make it easy. Then you have Kopech, which is more your prototypical, I'm going to throw you north of 102, and we're just going to see if you're going to hit it. But it certainly doesn't help with the late movement that he has. But even having said that, I have a level of faith in this Mets team in the sense that they have been here. They've went through adversity. They faced flamethrowers playing throughout the year. Nothing that the Dodgers throw them is something that they haven't been able to handle, but whether they will be able to handle it or not now in postseason play will be that greatest question, right? So before we get on more on these matchups for the rotation as well as Game 2 and everything else in between everybody, let me answer a comment here. We got Matthew Martell, great member with the $2 Holla, says, McNeil is going to be big for us to watch. I won't be shocked if he's big for us. Again, it's all about who's going to ride the hot hand, who's going to step up, what matters most. Chev McNeil, all it takes is one swing, one good grind of it at bat, say north of a 10 pitch at bat, gets on first or second there. That makes a difference. I think the Mets have themselves an abundance of riches and their second base options, and the fact that you have both Jose Iglesias and Chev McNeil, two guys that at their best can grind out at bats beautifully, even if they aren't doing it at the quality or rate because say they miss some clear pitches down the pipe to hit, they will then hack away fouls as long as they possibly have to make sure that they find themselves getting the at-bat that they're looking for. But before we talk a little bit more on this, everybody, let me enlighten you on what we're doing here with our amazing friends at BetUS that has you covered with all your sports betting needs, folks. As we dive into this one, folks, BetUS, make sure to check them out as they have you covered. Oh, wrong thing as always, because I tend to click the wrong thing lately when I do that. Alrighty, folks, BetUS, make sure to use Wardy's promo code YouTube150. That way you too get a 150% bonus on your first deposit, $125 on your next two, up to $2,000 for your 3 bets for all your sports betting needs. And as you guys can see here, as we mentioned yesterday, the Mets are the money line underdog at plus 135. Your guy Wardy was a schmuck and decided to pair that with the Detroit Tigers today. I had a lot of confidence in Tarek Skubal. Even there in Cleveland, I really thought Detroit was going to come out victorious with Tarek being the difference maker. However, when Skubal gives up a grand slam halfway through the game to Nationals legend Lane Thomas, the rest is history. That was ball game right then and there. So we sadly lost there on our 2-leg parlay, but we're looking to piggyback and we're going to follow up now. We're still hammering Mets money line. We're going to bias bet as we did plenty in both the wild card and the NLDS. And the Guardians and Yankees are starting Monday. If you guys want to pair this as a 2-leg go ahead, bias obviously has Yankees taking Game 1, especially at home with Garrett Cole on the mound. That feels like a foregone conclusion. Cleveland, I hope, gives them absolute hell, but it's not something that I expect to necessarily happen right off the rip. So until then, I'm going to be going with this 2-leg parlay, folks. That is going to be 10 to win you 13, and that's also going to be 10 to win you 645. If you're just hammering the Yankees outright, that'll be 10 to win you 28. So a total of 38.66 should both these teams win over the next 24 to 48 hours. Good luck to all my respective sports bettors. Check out BetUS at betus.com.pa for all your sports betting needs. We'll circle back on these picks after not only tomorrow's game, but also Monday's Game 1, ALCS, Yankees, Cleveland. Be there, be square, baby. Now let's get back into breaking down the latest in this matchup, folks, because as I mentioned, there are some more updates to get into. So let's break down exactly that, and it starts here with Game 2. Yes, Sean Manaea, the Simone Southpaw, is a surprise to absolutely nobody as well, will in fact be taking Game 2, toe in the rub.
How about Games 2 and 3?
I'll give you Game 2, Sean Manaea, and then from there we'll see.
So I'm not going to go out of my way to speculate what's going to happen in Game 3. Obviously, everything is kind of lining up for the Mets to go with Luis Severino should they wish there for Game 3. I absolutely love the fact that the Mets found themselves in a position where they are currently locked and loaded with having Sean Manaea pitching in LA. And the reason why I'm so happy about Manaea pitching in LA is similar to the reason why some people wanted Manaea to go out and pitch Game 1. That way you have Manaea, even if it is potentially on short rest, available in a best-of-7 series. This gives the Mets the option for that exact reality where Sean could come out and potentially pitch again in this series and in Game 6 or Game 7, even if that does mean short rest, knowing that you have at least enough of a gap to make that happen. If Manaea was not starting until, say, Game 3, Game 1 there at Citi Field, there wasn't a chance in hell he was likely going to pitch again in this series. So I like the mentality, I like the thought process by Carlos Mendoza. Here, Kodai and probably Pearson to piggyback there for Game 1. Sean Manaea, hopefully you're going to get 6 to 7 strong innings out of him. This is a Sean Manaea who has had success against the Dodgers throughout his career. He's also gotten rocked by the Dodgers in the past, so we'll see what we get here in Sean Manaea. But Sean will likely be slated to face Mr. Walker Buehler. And as we talk about the opponents here, and both the Flaherty's and the Buehlers on the starting pitching front, not named Yoshinobu Yamamoto for the LA Dodgers, let me enlighten you on how both these pitchers fared thus far in postseason play, because it is by no means what the Mets have gotten, thankfully, at this point, and Kodai Senga, David Pearson, and most notably, Sean Manaea. And it starts here with Jack Flaherty, as we see here, in 5.1 innings against the Padres back on October 6th. He gave 5 hits and 4 earned runs, 2 home runs allowed there that we saw at home, mind you, versus the Padres. So this was in LA's park, and we saw 1 walk, 2 strikeouts, nothing overly dominant, nothing that's going to make you say, oh my goodness gracious, Jack Flaherty is going to carve us up for breakfast. Walker Buehler was expected to get the Game 2 start and is expected to be the latest bargain contract signing by David Stearns this offseason. I'm not only saying that for the sake of saying that, I'm saying that because there is a level of truth behind that. As we get in the offseason, we will break that down further. Simply put, this is exactly the kind of arm that the Mets will probably try to get the best out of, similar to what they did in Sean Manaea and Severino this year, because of how great our pitching lab is and because of the continued progress and projection of, the continued development of one Germany Hefner, who has honestly handled the critics very well, including myself, going back to the first half, advancing the second half of the season. But Walker Buehler, as we see in 5 innings, 7 hits, 6 earned runs, 1 home run, 1 walk, 0 strikeouts there with a whopping 10 ERA against the San Diego Padres. This is the same Buehler who finished the regular season coming back from his Tommy John surgery with the over 5 ERA. Buehler has really struggled to fine-tune his game and get back in the groove that he's looked for in his first year back from injury and what is likely his final year there now in Mike's a little hot. How's the mic to everybody? You guys let me know in the chat how the microphone is to each and every one of you guys. Hopefully there aren't any issues there. But as I'm getting back in this, everybody, I love how the Mets are slated for games 1 and 2 in this matchup. Yamamoto is going to be obviously a stressful matchup, a massive matchup that I think the Mets are ready to take for either Game 3 or Game 4 back at Citi Field. But in the meantime, we're going to have an emphasis here on games 1 and 2. They're the most important. We're going to have that gap before we get on to Game 3. We're going to have that off day there on Tuesday. So when we have that off day Tuesday, we'll likely circle back and do a live show just like this and preview games 3 and 4, evaluate what the Mets did in games 1 and 2, and everything in between on that front. But I did see some comments I'd like to address quick before we go further here. Let's see here. Let me go up the list. And again, appreciate you guys for the kind words. Thank you. Willie, how you doing? I'm proud of you, bro. I remember when you were on for 2 days and didn't have many members. Congrats, bro, LFGM. I appreciate that, Wooly. Thank you kindly. Yes, we've come a long way since the start up there in the 2020 to 2021 offseason for the Mets when Steve Cohen first became owner. I appreciate you chiming in since the jump. You guys are the absolute best. I love the fact that we have Yanks fans in here. I'm not even going to acknowledge them because I quite frankly don't care. I'm going to let them give me the free viewership and ad revenue today. I'm never going to complain there. Appreciate you guys. And look, Yanks, let's see how you guys handle. I will say this. If you guys have any struggles against the Guardians the same way that you had any struggles against the Royals, which I thought was hilarious, I'm going to be ripping you guys a new ass because you have the easiest path ever under this current core group with Steinbrenner, with Cashman, with the Yanks, to make it all the way to the dance. You have the easiest path on paper ever without the Orioles in your way and without the Astros. If you guys do not get there, you are without question the biggest laughingstock and the biggest joke this season out of the American League. No one's saying the Astros are a joke because they had a poor first half. Great second half, fell short there to a young, hungry, and vibrant Detroit Tigers team. In the case of the Yankees, with all the expectations of the world, all they have to do is not meet those expectations, which is not win the World Series, and it's yet again another failure of a season for them. I'm looking forward to seeing how that's going to unravel. Until then, though, miss me with the nonsense on Yanks talk, because I quite literally don't give a rat's ass. Now, let's reel back into what is important, and that's the Mets trying to secure a best-of-7 series victory here against the LA Dodgers. And there's a couple key ways that they can do that. And first, we have to take a look at how do we approach this lineup, because as we saw with the Dodgers' latest lineup in their victory against the San Diego Padres by a final score 2-0, we can expect pretty much the exact same lineup that you guys see to my right here, eerily similar at least to what we will be getting in this matchup. What I mean by that is as follows, everybody. You're going to have Shohei Ohtani there batting leadoff there in the DH position, Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman. That is the three-headed monster. So what do? You're going to probably want to give at least one of these guys Bonds treatment. It's similar to the Phillies and their three-headed monster there, and Schwarber, Trey, and Harper. However, this is that on steroids. This is more lethal. This is not necessarily more boo for bust. This is more talent-oriented. I'm taking this three over the Phillies three every day of the week for obvious reasons. Mookie, who actually has been slugging the ball well in this year's postseason, unlike something we've seen in recent years from even in the World Series run there with the Red Sox, Mookie has not been notorious as a playoff performer for his big contract. Freddie Freeman, who obviously has been in and out of the lineup, he's there though, and all the stuff that he went on with his son this year, which is beyond unfortunate. I'm wishing him and his son the absolute best. Always been a huge Freddie guy. Just have to despise him over this next week or so because we're playing him now. Shohei, who, funny enough, if you look at MLB.com and you look up player stats, Shohei's the only player that automatically doesn't show his playoff numbers, but just his regular numbers, regular season numbers. It's almost like they're trying to not let you know that he's batting 200 with a 623 OPS. Now, Ohtani can come out a rake against the Mets. I expect that. I expect one of these three to torch the Mets every single game. That's a foregone conclusion I already have in my head. So, how are the Mets going to go about the rest of the lineup where you have boppers, but you need to challenge him? It starts with Teoscar Hernandez, who'll be batting cleanup for there. Batting fifth, Max Muncy, who's very vulnerable. Again, Max, just don't hate him anything. It's as simple as that. Get his ass to chase, because he will do that. Will Smith, who is a fantastic hitting catcher, hasn't done much yet in this year's playoffs, but again, he's had a flair for the dramatic against the Mets playing throughout his career. Enrique Quique Hernandez, looking for a big series of playoff home run heroic type guy, who led the way for the Dodgers in their Game 5 victory, winning 2-0 yesterday. Gavin Lux, who's finally learning how to hit a baseball, is coming out the best time for them, as he'll be batting towards the end of the order. And Tommy Edman, not so much known for the offensive heroics outside of contact ability, slapping the ball, but more so as great defense that you're going to get there at short or second base. That is the configuration that you have there for the LA Dodgers. So as I take a look at this lineup right now, and I do it in comparison to the Mets, who are likely going to have the lineup tomorrow as follows, folks. It'll likely have batting leadoff, Francisco Lindor. Batting second, we're going to have there Mark Vientos. Batting third, Brandon Nimmo. Batting fourth, Pete Alonso. Batting fifth there, I think you're going to go, honestly, batting fifth, I think you drop Jose Iglesias if you're going to have Jose start tomorrow. I think you put Jesse Winker in that 5 spot in the DH. I think that makes so much sense against a Flaherty where he can eat up those pitches for breakfast. I love that matchup. I really do. And then batting sixth, you're going to have one of Jose Iglesias or Jeff McNeil, whoever you want there starting at second base. Then batting seventh, you're going to have one of probably Starling Marte or Tyrone Taylor, however you want to go about that. I'd assume Harrison Bader will not be getting the start in this matchup. It'll be one of Tyrone or Marte there in the outfield, paired with Brandon Nimmo that we're going to see there as a potential configuration. And then you're going to have Alvarez batting ninth. I really, really like how this Mets lineup, at least in games 1 and 2, go toe-to-toe against this Dodgers rotation. What I have questions with is, funny enough, what the Mets have been so great at this season, and that is how will they handle the bullpen of the Dodgers? Because the bullpen of the Dodgers has run through its ebbs and flows all year long. They have some key pieces that we've highlighted in Treinen and Kopech and Vesia, who thankfully is no longer available. Evan Phillips, that is their core 3 now, with Vesia not going to be on the NLCS roster. Those are all 3 right-handers that can do massive damage against the Mets. And for the Mets here, they just have to continue to have the philosophy mindset that they've had all postseason long and all regular season long. Don't give a rat's ass who they're facing. Just go out there, grind out at-bats, and barrel baseballs. The Mets have scored 26 runs in 27 available innings against the opposing bullpens of both the Brewers and the Phillies combined this year's postseason. No other team has done that. The same way that no other team currently has a pitcher on their roster right now that has pitched 10 innings at least of postseason baseball without allowing an earned run. That is the case of Jose Quintana, who I'm really interested to see how the Mets go about his utilization. Should he be getting a start there when the Mets have their homestand? Will he be utilizing more of a relief role? We'll talk about that more so as we get to Tuesday after we went through games 1 and 2 of this matchup. But what we see right now with this Dodgers team, if you can work around that three-headed monster, it's not going to be easy. You're not going to be able to give Bonds treatment as much as you'd like to consistently because if you're walking these guys, they're going to run for days on you. And that's where we have a problem because Shohei Ohtani's going to be stealing bags. Mookie Betts is going to be stealing bags. Freddie can steal bags, even though I don't expect a lot of it. Tio obviously can get the base running going. Will Smith is a speedy mofo for a catcher that we know. Kike Hernandez, Gavin Lux, Tommy Edman, all three guys that can steal bags for you as well. This is a very uber athletic Dodgers team that is not one that is very much like the Phillies in the sense where they have a bunch of pylons that are playing in the outfield there for defense, when in reality, also shout out to my New York Ranger fans. Rangers just tied the hockey game 5-5 there. Beautiful backhand shot inside corner there by Adam Fox there, and it's 5-5 against the Utah Hockey Club, formerly known as the Arizona Coyotes, because piss poor ownership and not being able to build a proper market in your area will certainly do that. And sadly, Oakland A's fans are going through that feeling right here, right now. But let's reel back in from the hockey game. Let's talk about what we have here in this matchup, because the lineup, I really like it. Even with us matching up with this three-headed monster, I look at the depth of the order here for the Dodgers, and they're finally hitting on all full cylinders, but this is still a vulnerable baseball team. This is not a team that I look at and say, oh my goodness gracious, the Mets don't stand a chance. Listen, if the Mets don't win this series, no one is freaking out about it. No one is freaking out about it. Everyone's saying, okay, the Dodgers are the better team. They have the best player on the planet, you could rightfully argue, in Shohei Ohtani. Ohtani proved his worth. Ohtani balled out and have a great series and showed why he is MVP between himself and Lindor. Okay, good for them, and wish them luck, or absolutely wish them hell come World Series time. But here's the thing. For the Mets to get all the way here, when they took a step back on their pain, when they tried everything for Yamamoto, and Yamamoto went to LA because of obvious circumstances, even when the same dollar amount was offered basically by the Mets there at $325 or so, this is a Mets team that they're just playing with house money. This is a team that's been doubted all year long. They've been told that they've been sucked constantly. Ask JD Martinez, who will reference my guy Anthony Recker very well, and blunt thoughts on the Mets especially. This is a team that I look at how they go toe-to-toe with the Dodgers, and I absolutely see a world where it at least goes 6, if not 7 games between the two. Whoever wins, I have this overwhelming confidence, and I have the boys to thank for it. This Dodgers team, look, we've seen them at their peak. We know how good they are. We just saw them finish a very emotional series against the San Diego Padres, who have been their daddy of recent years, that you can rightfully argue. They had to throw out all the stops, including losing their best southpaw option, their bullpen, for the NLCS now, because they had to go all out and go a best-of-5 series when the Mets only needed 4 against the Philadelphia Phillies. This is the same Phillies team that has torched the Dodgers playing throughout the regular season. This is the same Phillies team that was deemed by many to win it all this year, including myself back in the offseason. So it just shows you that even with the guys you have on paper, it's about momentum. And I'm loving the momentum here from the boys. I am absolutely loving what they're giving me. So it ain't going to be for a lack of effort. I obviously hope and pray the Mets don't drop this series and say 4 or 5 games. Just be valiant, have the effort, and as long as they have the effort, I have all the confidence in the world that they're going to be here till the very end, and certainly making things interesting, to say the least. I'm hoping for a fantastic series too, Aaron. I appreciate you chiming in from a Dodgers fan point of view. This is one of those things, a lot of Dodgers fans I've had in my comments have not paid attention to the Mets this year. I don't think you guys understand what you're going to be having. This is not me saying, oh, buckle up, the Mets are going to give you absolute hell. All I'm telling you is be cognizant of your opponent. I'm well aware of how good this Dodgers team is. I'm well aware that they have 3 of arguably the best players on the planet to start their lineup. No one should be shocked if they go out and torch the Mets multiple games in this series. That, again, very much can be a reality. But what's also reality is understanding the pros and cons to a baseball team as an unbiased baseball fan who's following the clubs as much as they can throughout a 162. As we've evaluated the Dodgers all year long, the same way we've evaluated the Mets, if you know the Mets, you understand they have been the best team in baseball since the start of June. You understand that they're playing with house money. You understand that this is no longer a fluke, but this is a reality. This team is just that good. The same way that we understand all the obstacles and adversities on the health front that Dodgers fans went through this year, Mets fans know that feeling very well. We went through more injuries than any other team in Major League Baseball since the start of, I believe, the 2013-2014 season. And no, that's not an exaggeration. Literally, the Mets have been a shit show with injuries. But thankfully, things have finally started to turn under David Stearns and under Steve Cohen over this past calendar year. The point I'm trying to make here, folks, is that even with how these teams look head-to-head, anything can happen. And I'm absolutely pumped up to see how these teams go toe-to-toe in this one. I really am. BC, funny that you say that. I was actually planning on doing a collab with my man D-Mac, but he wasn't able to for the timing today. I literally texted him. He hit me up hours ago, said, what time works for you? I said, how about 9 p.m.? Didn't get me back until literally 5 minutes before the show started today, and said sadly he wouldn't be able to do one until early as tomorrow. So if I do a segment with D-Mac tomorrow, it'll likely be just on his platform. I'll ask him if he would like to do a collab solely on theirs, because we've already beat a dead horse there with our series previews. This is already like our unofficial third one since we found out that we're going to the NLCS. You don't give a that's fine, Fernandez. Let's go Dodgers. Actually, let's not go Dodgers. Let's wish them the absolute worst. But no less, we appreciate you chiming in, my man. Sean, appreciate the kind words too. You guys are the best. But yeah, D-Mac and I, we may collab early tomorrow on the Dodgers Nation YouTube channel with 100+ subs. You guys can check out the content there. Not confirmed. I'm just going to text him as soon as we're done with the live show today, actually, to find out what's happening there. D-Mac does a fantastic job. He's absolutely underestimating the Mets in this series, and I'm absolutely loving every second of it, because I want the Mets to continue to be the underdog, because that's what's helped them propel all year long. That underdog mentality, being doubted by the media, being doubted because they're facing the big bad Dodgers, being doubted because they didn't spend $1.2 billion this past year and landed Ohtani Yamamoto the way that the Dodgers did. Listen, if the Mets do something magical in here, they go out and get the job done. They've proven everything, regardless of what would happen in World Series play. They've proven everything. Literally, the biggest FU right in the face of Freeman and everyone there in LA in that front office would be to slay this dragon. And in the first year under Stearns with Cohen and a so-called punt year to go farther than the Dodgers, who allowed Trey Turner to walk, who allowed multiple guys to be parted with in recent years to make the room for Ohtani and Yamamoto in their pursuits. That would be the biggest chef's kiss and a true full circle moment of what was a whirlwind of a 162. Let's see, have I ever thought about getting into sports broadcasting? The whole reason why I do this is because I admired sports radio and play-by-play and wanted to do that as a young man. I shifted more in the content space because that's one where I realized it could propel and grow at a faster rate, and that's thankfully been evident from what we have done over the past 3.5 years. We have been the largest Mets platform, not directly affiliated with the Mets themselves. It's opened up endless opportunities. I'm a frequent host on Bleacher Report. I do segments all the time with SNY, New York Post. I've worked with WFAN in the past. Like, all these things have been made available to me just by simply starting what I've started myself and being my true self. So, simply put, would I be open to play-by-play? Absolutely. I think I would kill it. I know I would kill it. But for me, it's basically mentally, would I be interested in that? Because it further takes away from being able to appreciate the game as a fan, from a creator's perspective as well, and also the grind of what the play-by-play brings. The pre-game work, end-game work, post-game work, prep for the next game. It's a lot. Gary Cohen, I commend him, but I don't envy him, if that makes sense, because what Gary has on a day-by-day basis is so unbelievably significant on the work front that it takes a truly special wired human being to do that for a day-by-day, let alone for 162 games where your off-season is so short-lived and you're back out there calling games in spring training in February before you know it. Again, you got to be a special breed, and you have to have the right mentality, the right, not only mentality, but home place. A lot of things have to go in your way. So down the road, I think that's definitely a possibility, but right now, I just want to continue to rise up in the content space because we've been roaring here. It's all thanks to each and every one of you guys throughout the years. So thank you guys kindly for that. And let's have ourselves a fun, epic series for all Americans. Hell yeah, Fernandez. I love that. America, baby. Hell yeah. Sign me up. There we go. That's what I love. It's like, all right, we hate each other right now, but we're all Americans. Let's just hype ourselves up. And then we got my man Darren from the UK chiming in. I mean, I'm from the UK, but hype me up too. Either way, I love it. Get me going, baby. Let's get this thing locked and loaded. Worry tells the Dodgers, tell the Dodgers I said, who's your daddy? Says Frank. Let's see. Going up the list here, everybody. Just make sure I didn't miss anything. Nando, thank you for the kind words. I appreciate Wardy supporting others. Always. Again, I appreciate everyone in this space, because if it isn't for other people in this space that have helped get me going, I would not be where I am. So even if they are competitors to a degree, even if they are rival fan base content creators, I recommend a lot of them, especially if I think they do good content just for those respective teams, for sure. Let's see. I was at the doubleheader this year, Wardy. Remember Freddie Freeman's three home run in extras? No, I actually don't, funny enough. It's such a blur because April, May baseball is such a blur for me with the Mets this year. I kid you not. Post-game show with Dravnik Mark, that very much could happen at some point in this series. We'll see if Mark's up for it. Definitely would like to have at least one guest on for one of these throughout the week, so we'll make that happen. But let me make sure I did not miss anything on the update front, folks, because I do think we have a couple of comments. And funny enough, I got to just show you this. Kodai Senga was asked a stupid comment, as one could expect from one Mike Puma. Love Mike, wish him well, but Mike is notorious for just being out of the loop when it's like, clearly you can read the room, clearly you shouldn't ask a certain question, but by God, he's going to ask it. So let's hear Kodai Senga's response to the following question.
How much excitement does this series have back home in Japan with yourself, Otani, Yamamoto?
どうなんですかね。日本に帰ってないからわからないです。I'm not in Japan, so I'm not sure.
How do you approach pitching to Otani?
ここで喋る人はどのピッチャーもいないと思います。I don't think any pitcher would reveal how we're going to approach and impose.
Guys, I love that. It's the fact that Senga's like, buddy, listen, you really think I'm going to let you know the game plan for Shohei out of all people? Granted, the game plan is more than likely going to utilize that Ghost Fork to his ability because Shohei has not seen it at the major league level, and that Ghost Fork is disgusting. It's pretty much unhittable unless you're pretty much Shohei Ohtani. So expect that to be hammered. Expect very few meatballs to be thrown down the plate, God willing. Expect a lot of respect between the two, but no less from fellow countrymen to fellow countrymen. I just think it's absolutely hilarious that anyone would fathom for a second an NLCS play that they're going to try to reveal their cards. Like, are you kidding me? Like, it's asking Jack Flaherty, how are you going to approach Francisco Lindor in this series, right? We know how much you love to work those off-speed pitches, so are you going to go down and away on him, or are you going to go up? And then what are we getting here? It's like, it's just so out of touch. I think that's hilarious. So out of touch. And I know, Nando, and again, we'll see that come into play. We will. I know the Rangers tied at Ethan. We called it a little bit ago. 5-5 ball game. Not ball game, but 5-5 hockey game. Absolutely bananas one there for game one at the Garden this year. We love it. We absolutely do. Final update I have for you guys is completely irrelevant to the NLCS. But actually, it isn't irrelevant to the NLCS because it may impact the NLCS. Jose Iglesias, who yesterday officially dropped his remix version of Oh My God, now with Pitbull, yes, Mr. Worldwide. He might throw out first pitch at one of these games at Citi Field. Or just make an appearance to do a live show. Remember when we had Timmy Trumpet coming out for Red One in 2022? Fuck it. Let's do an in-game 7th inning stretch. Mets rally caps on because they're losing 3-2 to the Dodgers. In-game live show with Pitbull, OMG, Jose coming off the bench in between innings. Get it going to set up Iglesias to have himself a leadoff single. And then from there, we're going to see the boys rallying and win a big one. I see it now. The writing's on the wall, right? But seriously, I think it's just absolutely hilarious that is a potential reality. And that even Tim Healy said it right after. That's a crazy sentence. It is a crazy sentence, but that is the year 2024. Whether it is the OMG Mets, whether it's the Grimace Mets, whether it's a Haktua Mets, whether it's the Rally Pimp Mets, whether it's that little cute dog Mets, whether it's oh my goodness gracious, even if you want to say the gay Mets, because people joked because the Mets had their best month there in the month of June out of all months this year in Pride Month. Whatever it is, things are working. They're riding high. So let's continue with these amazing vibes. Watch party at Citi Field, see or no, you should definitely go. If you're asking should he go, I'd highly implore anyone and everyone to go to those watch parties, 100%. I'm not going because I'm going to be covering this for content purposes and for fan purposes and for my own purpose at pretty much every single game this series. Because sadly, guys, it breaks my heart to say, as of now, we are completely leaning to no Wardy showing up for the NLCS. And sadly, the only reason as to why is that nosebleeds are $400 a pop right now. I'm a father of not even 4 months now, and while yes, it is true when I attend games, these things are write-offs, they are things I can utilize for work. It does not help when I'm literally basically putting out $1,000 for not even potentially a World Series situation for nosebleeds when I am very tight with my financial situation as is right now as a full-time content creator and as a new dad. So because of those reasons, unless things change in my life because of others or just in general, I'm not going to be attending any NLCS games, sadly. But I will preface this: if the Mets do the thing, if they do somehow, some way, God willing, go all the way to the dance, then that's where things completely change, because there might be some outside factors of other people that may come into play to make sure that I can get there. Either way, my goal is to hopefully attend at least one playoff game for the Mets this year, but sadly, I don't know if it'll be any sooner than potentially them getting all the way to the dance, because these tickets are just absolutely astronomical. I was initially looking, like, before we found out it was the Dodgers, and they were like $350 nosebleed. Now they're $400. I got a buddy, Jake Brown, and got gifted 3 tickets. Gorgeous seats there for like the 3 games at Citi Field should the Mets play, which is absolutely insane. I'm very envious of him right now, obviously, and I wish him well, and I hope he has a blast doing that. But yeah, these aren't cheap, you know, and that's why I commend every Mets fan that is going out of their way to attend these games, that's giving up a lot of their life savings right now. This is what they saved up for. I had things saved up, but what I didn't have fully saved up was to become a new dad over the past year. So that's thrown a wrench in a lot of these other decisions. So my apologies, but I'm very grateful for the situation I'm currently in. Not happy about the fact that I won't be going to the NLCS at this rate, but I am happy because even though if I'm not attending the games physically, I will be here for each and every one of you to cover it to the thousands upon thousands that we have been doing the past couple of weeks. Those are not cheap, my friend. 300 to 400 might be cheap to you, but it depends on what class of individuals we're talking about here. I'm a full-time content creator and a new dad. I'm going to be completely honest with you. We're not just making, 6 bands a year like it's nothing out here off the riff. That isn't happening. So because of that reason, that's why we have to kind of run things on a tight ship at the moment. Sean with the $2 hollow says, it's October, baby. The OMG remix is peak. Absolutely, Sean. Thank you for that donation. I appreciate that. You guys are absolutely cracking me up. I'm loving everything in the chat, everybody. We're going to wrap up the live show in just another minute or two. But if you guys have any specific comments, questions, whatever you guys got for me, by all means, relay them my way. Otherwise, make sure to smash the like and subscribe button on your way out. If you haven't already, thank you so much. We got Mike, Caution, Big Me Pete, all amazing members. BC, how you doing? Thank you guys for taking the time to chime in. Bobby G, great member. How you doing, everybody? Thank you for being in here. McNeil AFL update, as we mentioned earlier, he got to start in right field today. He looked good. There wasn't any issues there. So everything is now in line for Jeff McNeil to return to the Mets tomorrow, and I'm sure we will hear that rather early from Mr. Carlos Mendoza. Isaac, I appreciate you too, brother. Thank you. Michael says, Wardy, are we going to see another appearance from that Mets rally pick during the coverage in the LCS? I'm inclined to believe exactly that, yes. I have not done anything when it comes to that. I've not asked for it. I'm not going to say who it is. I'm not going to say what the reason is. I'm not going to provide any context. I'm just going to tell you, don't be surprised if you see more things that you're not going to see in any other in-game watch party here on YouTube as we cover the Mets all postseason long. We're doing wild things here. Who knows? One day you're going to get a pig. Next day you're going to get a baby. Then you're going to get some bunnies. Maybe you're going to get something completely different. Maybe you're going to get someone acting like Hulk Hogan, ripping their shirt off. Who the hell knows what is going to happen? But what I can tell you is, what I do know what will happen is that we're going to have a very emotional, a very eventful-filled couple days, at least a week here on the WardyNYM platform as they continue their postseason run. Having said that, everybody, that's going to do it. I want to thank you all so much for watching live on a replay. Thank you kindly for that. Everyone watching live now, people that are just chiming in on a replay hours afterwards, thank you for the time. I will see you all for in-game and post-game coverage, officially starting tomorrow, right around 7:15, 7:20 or so, if not sooner. Be on the lookout, folks. We're going to be locked and loaded for north of 4, if not 5 hours of in-game and post-game coverage here live on the WardyNYM platform. Until then, have a fantastic rest of your night to evening. Whenever you're watching this, this is your guy, Wardy, signing out.